This is a really big term going on these days. What are some signs you're going through the dark night of your soul? A dark night of the soul. What is it? I remember my entire life, from the age of like 6 on, I wanted to be in the military. But I didn't want to just be in the military. I wanted to be in special forces, the elite. I wanted to be around the toughest men on earth, alpha males. Then I'll feel important. Then I just want to be somebody. Once I'm somebody, my life will be worth it. Want the world to validate my importance. So I spent my entire life, 20 years, training and preparing for this. 20 years. Every major decision that I ever made in life was, will this make me a better candidate for this? I found mentors. I was in the peak physical condition. Unstoppable. Traveled the world, degree, school, all this stuff. It was like, I'm going to be a good candidate. I remember when I first joined the Army, the universe started sending me signs pretty quickly. This ain't for you, man. But, I was so, so wrapped up in my ego. This identity, this whole identity that I had created. There's a point to this. I had created this whole sense of self, this identity around this thing. And it was so stifling and tense and anxious. I was going through my life and I was just believing this lie that I was telling myself. This wasn't really who I was, but I didn't know this yet. I didn't want to believe this yet because I had invested so much time in this, right? But it just slowly stopped working for me. Something felt wrong about it, but I just didn't want to believe it. I had gotten hurt on like the first day. I have like a permanent shoulder injury because of it. And it just wasn't clicking, but like alpha male, gotta persevere, gotta power through this. And I got there. I got to the selection, and it was, I remember I was in the woods, and doing land navigation at night, where they give you like a map and a compass and they just say you gotta find your way through like dozens of miles of just woods. No flashlight. I had 90 pounds on my back. And it was fine. Physically, I was fine. I was in shape. I was in good shape, man. And I was moving. And I was doing fine. It was the second week of the 3-week selection, and I was like, man, I'm like doing good. A little city boy, Never been really in the woods before, and got caught in a typhoon. I remember this big storm. It was raining like you couldn't believe it. Hadn't slept or eaten at all. Days. So exhausted. And I remember I was still doing good. I was finding my point and I was moving along, and I just remember it hit me like a train. I don't want to do this. It just isn't me. I broke. I just remember my reasons and my sense of self-worth and my sense of self and everything I'd wrapped into this. I couldn't lie to myself anymore. I just couldn't do it. And it was followed by a feeling of serenity, small, quiet feeling of serenity, to just a nightmare. I had felt like I didn't know who I was anymore, because I had finally admitted to myself that my entire sense of self was not actually who I was. This was a product of my mind and a product of my ego. The universe was giving me signs for a long time. I just didn't know how to listen back then. I didn't want to listen. My ego didn't let me. I was so wrapped up in my ego. And so I left. A really interesting lesson I learned in life, and this is how I really started to see that, just how little you can plan in life, is I prepared for every possible reason for me to make it. It was all about not quitting. I didn't prepare for the one thing that I had thought about everything, but I didn't prepare for the one thing that actually happened. What if I got there and just didn't like it? No one ever talks about that. It's funny. It's all about working hard and not quitting, but no one talks about, do you even like what you're doing? all for, it's all in the quest to just be someone in society, right? Be validated. What followed was 2 months of the single worst depression I had ever experienced in my life. I didn't know who I was anymore. I had no direction. I had no sense of self. I was vulnerable. I can't even describe the vulnerability. Like, I had nothing to protect myself. My ego was gone. Like, I just didn't know who I was or anything anymore, and I had to go through some serious grief, the stages of grief. A lot of times, grief isn't just about the loss of something externally. It can be an internal loss as well. Sadness doesn't even begin to cut it. I didn't sleep. Fortunately, it was during COVID time, so I remember I was confined in my room in these barracks rooms for like 3 weeks straight. Meals brought to me and everything. I couldn't leave. So I was like, well, this is a perfect time for a spiritual journey. But I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. Didn't exercise. I didn't work out. I didn't spend time with anybody. I was just alone with my thoughts. I remember I couldn't even, as I said, I couldn't even sleep. And when I did, it was at like, I'd sleep at like 7 or 8 in the morning to like 5 or 6 p.m. at night. That's what my sleep schedule turned into. And I didn't know anything. I had it was so scary. I just didn't feel like going on or continuing or anything. That's what a dark night of the soul is. It is a total destruction of your ego, your sense of self that's no longer serving you. And you have to go through that. You have to go through that. You might have to go through a couple of those in life. A lot of people call them midlife crises, oh my God, like this, you get to the middle of your life and you got the sports car, you got the trophy wife or the trophy husband, and you're making all this money and you got your kids are grown and all this. You're like, wait a minute, this is it? I'm still not happy? I think what triggers a dark night of the soul is you get to a point where you realize that this thing that you've wanted your entire life, or this sense of identity that you've wrapped yourself up in, isn't going to make you happy. It's deep, man. It's the real deal, though. It's true. So you start asking yourself, like, well, what is going to make me happy? I can tell you right now that it's nothing externally that is going to bring everlasting happiness. You're always going to need more, because it's the ego is always going to want more. You get to a point where you're just happy being who you are. Your sense of self is not really what makes you happy. It's just you going through your spiritual journey, being an empath or whatever it is. And it's stuff that's just far beyond that. Whatever you want to call yourself in this world, an empath and a narcissist or whatever. There's an essence and an energy that's behind your God essence and energy that's behind all of that stuff. That's who you truly are. I've never done a video like this because I just, my channel isn't really about this kind of stuff, but it's the truth. And, we're all about spontaneity, no clickbait, and the truth on this channel. I'm going to tell you how it is. I'm not here to get views. I'm not here to get subscribers, and I'm not here to make money. Here because the universe called me to do this, and yeah, I'm in the flow of things. So I remember, though, how do you get through those heavy emotions? You got to lose your expectation of when it's going to end or what's going to happen next. You have to throw that out. This could last 3 months, 3 weeks, or 3 years. You're here, though. You literally feel like you might want to kill yourself. Like, it can be that bad. What's the point of any of this? And I'm here to tell you, though, that it will end soon. And it does end. And what's on the other side of that is your authentic self. Once you become in touch with that authentic self, that's when the universe gets out of your way and starts giving you what you need in life and what you're supposed to have in life, not what you want to have. You learn to relax. You learn to just chill and just let life happen. Let it happen. You know, you don't have this visualization or these ideas of how you want your life to be anymore. It just, what's meant for you is going to be yours, and what's not isn't. You might have to go through a couple of those to get to that place, though. But I can tell you why it's worth it. Like, it's peace. And everything and you have this trust that everything that's in your life isn't going to be taken away from you, or it's not, you don't have this doubt that it's not going to be meant for you anymore. You can feel when something or someone comes into your life and they're supposed to be there for however long it's supposed to be there, and when it's time to let it go, you let it go. You don't have an attachment to it anymore. You don't have an attachment to people or things or jobs or careers or any of that stuff anymore. The universe prescribes what it prescribes, and that's it. I'm not saying you don't get caught up in the mind here and there occasionally and get wrapped up in all of that stuff, but you quickly can get out of it, But I remember there's nothing that you can do or should do about it. You just have to sit there and allow the ego to die. What you're feeling inside is the internal fight of the ego trying to stay alive. It just took its fatal blow and it's still squirming and trying to fight. You just got to let it go. Got to let it die. You got to surrender to it. There's peace in that, and there's power in that. Surrender. And I'm not saying to do nothing. I'm saying to be still, because being still and doing nothing are two different things. Be still through the process, and when it ends, you'll wake up one day and you'll just feel at peace. You'll feel in the flow of things, and you'll let life come to you naturally. And you can't avoid this either. People that are a little bit more advanced in their spiritual journey, when you really start to become self-aware and you really start to you've just been asking yourselves the introspective questions you start to question everything after a certain amount of time, you're going to see it'll come naturally. But the dark night of the soul can't be avoided. And when it does, you need to let it happen. The universe is taking care of it all. Don't doubt that. You don't have to do anything, but you need to let go of the expectation. That's your responsibility, and let it happen. And be as kind to yourself as you humanly can through the process. Don't run from it. Don't go drown it. Don't go drown it in having sex or drinking or drugs or any of that stuff. Like, you want to talk about seriously going down the wrong path, that's how you do it. I think that's a huge reason why people do drugs and have meaningless sex and have those dopamine hits and all that stuff, is because they keep running away from that stuff. What's on the other end of that is authentic self-confidence, self-peace, and just I don't want to say bliss, because that's the wrong word, but it's just like, it's cool. You're good. But I've had a couple of those experiences in life, but that was I think the first one and the biggest one. They get easier. But it was hard. I had to let I remember I had to let people, my whole family and friends and people that my mentors and people that went out of their way to help me out on this. It's hard. A lot of shame, a lot of low vibrational emotions, shame, guilt, anger, all of it. It's bad. But it's okay. It's all good. You're not going to die, You just got to get through it and trust that on the other end of it is much better things. I promise you there's much better things on the other end of it. And if you haven't had a dark night of the soul yet, if you really continue on this spiritual journey, it'll happen. And just remember this video, And everyone that really doesn't care, then I hope you enjoyed a quick story. All right, everyone. I hope you all have a wonderful day.